everyone, my name is Kaikun6 and I'm here to give you the third episode of Playlist Stories. I was debating whether or not, what kind of memory I was gonna talk about this week, or if I was gonna wait till, next week or something, but a certain song showed up on my playlist, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna talk about that song and this certain memory that connects with it. So this song, 1234 by Feist, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name right, but, you can just correct me in the comments below. I remember listening to the song a lot when it first came out, back in 2007, I think. And at the time, MTV and VH1 were actually playing music videos and, showing you hey, this week's or today's, playlist is this and this and this. And I was just like, oh, I really like the song. And even as of today, I still listen to it. And every single time, I listen to this, it just reminds me of a certain person. And I'm going to talk about that certain person and this certain memory. So, and it's so funny because this song played a lot also in my high school. And it was school dances, radios, people's phones. It was almost everywhere. And I was just like, that's just nuts, I can't believe a lot of people actually really like it. So anyway, let's get on with this memory, Okay. And sorry about if there's any background noise. I'm actually playing some music in the background. I just have a really low volume so that way, I don't get copyright strike. And the dryer did went off not that while ago, so I was doing a load of laundry, and then my hair is nuts. It's crazy because the humidity here in Texas is crazy, and I did took a shower about an hour ago before I started recording this. So anyway, let's start. I want to talk about my first local boyfriend. And his nickname is Asshole. And I'll tell you why I stuck with that nickname for him. And it was thanks to my brother. So, okay. I first met him in high school. I met him in my second half of my sophomore year, thanks to another friend of mine that I had Algebra 2 with. And thanks to her, I got introduced to these group of individuals. They were known as the outcasts in high school, and that everybody knew who they were. And if you even were associated with them, they were just shocked, And I remember throughout, sophomore year, junior, and senior year, they would see me hanging out with these, people, and I had them in class, of some of them. And they'll be like, I can't believe you hang out with them. And I'm just like, why? What's wrong with them? They're really nice people. I'm telling you, give them a chance. They'll show up. They'll show up to, to be friendly. But then we have, friends like my friend Choji and Sparky. And then my other childhood friend that is friends with them. And as of today, because his mom used to be my babysitter at the time. So they would scare him off. Especially another one, I can't believe I actually remember him. And we called him the Jew because he was the only Jew friend that we had in this group. So the Jew would scare them off. And it's just so funny. So anyway, so this particular girl, her name is Lolita. Or nicknamed Lolita because she always dressed up as gothic Lolita fashion almost every single day. And I just thought that was really cool. So thanks to her, I got introduced to these group of individuals. And this particular one became my first local boyfriend. And I don't know. I had, he's such a great person. I don't know. Maybe it's just me or whatever. But, even as of today, I don't talk to him that much. But, I'm still friends with his best friend. And whenever, we had hangouts, especially from after high school or, just after school, in high school, he was always such a nice person. We bonded. We really did. I felt like he was my very first guy best friend. And I mean, I had other, best friends, of course. And I'll tell you in a future video also as to what happened to my first girl best friend. And how come I'm no longer friends with her no more. But I felt like he could genuinely be my first guy best friend. And I mean, it did. And he did. It was so freaking surreal, honestly. So, this, asshole. He was such a nice person. He still is as of today. He and I bonded over Japanese anime, video games, music, and even food, you know, because we were both foodies at the time, and I mean, I still am. I know he still is too. So so we bonded. We really did. And I didn't know what to think of to this guy because he started showing like signs to me that he was really interested in me, and I was just like, I can't, because you're already 18 years old, and at the time I was like 17, I think. No, 16 or 17. But all I know, he was 2 years older than me. And I can't believe I still remember his birthday because he never made me forget it, and it's on New Year's. So every single time I'd be like, hey, it's my birthday coming up, you know, like we should celebrate. And I'll be like, yeah, sure, we should, and then whatever. So anyway, so we got to know each other throughout the whole time in high school, and especially when he graduated from high school, and he would come over to like the after school hangouts to like hang out with me and my friends and stuff. So I just thought that, you know, he's such a nice person, sorry. But it came to a point, like, I think it was like as soon as he found out that I turned 18, like his demeanor changed. Like he became a little bit more aggressive, like, towards me, kind of like, you know, I still like you. I've had a crush on you for so long, and I was hoping that maybe you can go out. And I just like, no, dude, because I need to concentrate on school and on my grades. And at the time, like, my parents implemented the fear in my brain that if I ever got pregnant early in high school, or, you know, I had a bad grade in school or something like that, like, the fear was that I would get kicked out of my house or something worse or something like that. But it was like that fear was implemented in there, and for some reason it never applied to my brother and my sister, but for me, as being the middle child, probably it did. So I don't know. Anyway, but so he was just like, all right, cool, let's just be friends. So we stayed friends for a while, and then now like after graduation day, he and I hung out a lot because it was like this small break, and like I was already going to be going to college and stuff like that. So he and we were just hanging out like from May 2010 to all the way to November 2010. So we were hanging out as friends, and it was just so awesome. We bonded really well, like, but for some reason, every single time somebody else gets into the conversation, it's like he becomes an asshole. He really did, and I was just like wondering why. He never explained it to me. And then I remember when I asked my friend Choji, he was like, oh, he's always been like that ever since, you know, we met him. And then if you really want to know, you should go ask, you know, his best friend. And I remember asking him, and it's so funny, his nickname, he was the dependable black guy. And and I was like, oh, should I even say that? Because, I mean, that was his nickname back in high school, because he was the only person we ever trusted him with money. And of course, you know, because of his race and stuff like that. But like at the time, it was very sociably acceptable to like label people, like, and they never got offended of it. So he was the dependable black guy, and, you know, whatever. But he oh my god, it's just so funny. Even as of today, we bring up that nickname to him, and then he's just like, oh my god, I can't believe you guys still fucking remember that. But anyway, so there was a time where I guess I decided to be like, you know what, I can't believe I actually have a crush on this guy, on asshole, not on best friend, sorry. And so I decided, you know, I was like, should I give him a chance? Should I not? Am I really ready to date? I'm already out of high school. I'm over 18. Am I mentally prepared? I don't know. All I remember was I wanted to get into college, but I still wanted to have fun, you know, to be with my friends. So I decided to, you know, hang out with him a lot, you know, kind of like see where this goes. Like, kind of like a taste of like what would be like dating somebody in person, you know, because before him, I had, you know, long distance boyfriends, and they never worked out. And I mean, if you want me to, well, actually I should talk about them too, because they were like another part of my life. So maybe in a future video, I'll talk about both of them. But asshole was my first local my ex-boyfriend. So we hung out. We had, like, you know, football games at school. We hung out there. We hung out at College Junior. That was kind of like a few blocks away from the high school, you know, this and this and this. So eventually I decided to date him. Started dating him in November of 2010. And we were already like 2 weeks in, I guess, into November. And the first red flag showed up. And that was when he knew my sister. And my sister was just like, so this is the guy you're dating? I said, yes, this is him. Like, I'm going to introduce you to asshole. And then it's like, asshole, my sister, asshole. And so they kind of got along well, but my sister still had that vibe, you know, it's kind of like, something's wrong with him. Then that's when it happened. Apparently, he was thinking about getting me laid at some point. And I was like, we're only 2 weeks into dating and you're already thinking about having sex with me. That's just a huge red flag. But for some reason I didn't want to stop dating him, so I was just like, okay, cool. So eventually after that, things just got weirder from there. Like, I felt so uncomfortable in front of him because whenever he and we were alone, it just felt uncomfortable. Like, I felt like I was really scared of him. But eventually that feeling went away as soon as, like, we started hanging out more. But, you know, there was a point in November where he completely stopped talking to me. Like, even after that day. And then there would be sporadically, like, times where he'll answer phone calls or messages on Facebook where he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, you know, like, let's go hang out, and we will hang out. And it was just so weird because I was like, shouldn't you have, like, constant communication with these people? Like, I just thought that was, like, a normal thing back then, like, where they would ghost you and, you know, like, it was a normal thing. And I was like, no, for some reason it didn't sit with me right. So I ended up asking him one day for, you know, like, to see if he wanted to go out on a date, and he was like, yeah, let's go on a date. So our first date was at this Comic-Con thing in Claremont in California, and it was canceled due to the rain. And it was so weird because it's like, it is November, and it is kind of like rainy season over there at the time, so all right, fuck it, you know. So that got canceled. We ended up eating at a Japanese restaurant just, like, nearby there, and my god, the food is so delicious. I wish I knew the name of this restaurant, but I don't. Well, all I know is it's located in Claremont. So eventually things were going really well between me and him. Like, I felt like, okay, maybe, you know, I was considering if we can go on a second date or something, or, like, hanging out with him more or whatever. Well, it kind of got awkward from there because his family showed up, and it kind of ruined the date. And I was just like, oh fuck, you know, like, I got to meet his parents. His dad had a Confederate flag on his arms because he was, like, covered in tattoos, like, all over his arms. And I was like, fuck, they might be racists. And I eventually got vibes that yes, both of his parents were racists. So I decided to, you know, I was like, I need to stay away from these folks, you know. And I don't know, just eventually things went well after that. I got along with his parents really well, and they were like, oh my god, really like her, you know, she's really nice. And I was like, okay, cool. So eventually date was over. They dropped me off at my mom's house at the time, and things went really well from there. We were constantly hanging out. And then eventually by the last week of November, he, like, ignored me. He really did. Like, no phone calls, because at the time he didn't like texting. So, and he had a flip phone at the time, so it was kind of like, it was strange. So I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, this is so strange. And I remember talking to my friend Choji, and he was like, yeah, doesn't sound right. Like, I thought you guys were really hitting it off. And I was like, me too. Like, I don't know what's going on. What should I do? And he was like, well, how long has it been since he, you know, called you or hung out with him? I said, it's been, like, over 2 weeks. And he was like, oh no, you need to break things off with him. And I was like, all right, cool. And then eventually there was a hangout that literally kind of like almost everybody showed up to this event, including, like, some new friends that I made when I was still in high school, that they never had a chance to get to know me. So they showed up, and it was pretty fun. They got to know each other, and then eventually something happened where it caught my attention, where my friend Choji said, like, well, if you're dating asshole, then why is he touching like all these other girls? And I was just like, what are you talking about? And I looked over and I was like, yeah, that doesn't look right. Like, he should be like hanging out with me or whatever. But I know he wanted to be social, so I was trying to give him some distance too, but for some reason it didn't sit with me right, and I just thought maybe it was like the crazy teenage hormones, I guess, because he could have been my first potential, you know, boyfriend. And eventually, yes, he did become my boyfriend, but I don't know, I just felt like I had to break things off for some reason. So then a day or two later, he and I were on a date with with my friend at the time, It Girl. Yeah. And then she had to go home. And so we ended up going to Carl's Jr., a few blocks away from the high school. My ex-best friend at the time showed up with her family, started eating with us, talking to us, and, you know, asshole was getting really frustrated, saying, what's up with all these constant interruptions? And I was like, I don't know. And finally, we were like, okay, let's leave. So we ended up going to Stoner Park, and that was like kind of like where we decided this is going to be the end of the date. We started talking, we started bonding again, like it was kind of like as if nothing happened. And then he kissed me, and I was like, okay, I could see myself probably like really, really like being really close to this guy. And then I got picked up by my mom because I told her it was already getting late, and he got picked up from, you know, his family came first because since they lived really nearby the high school, and at the time my mom's house was like about kind of like a 15-minute drive from there, but for some reason it was pretty far, but I know it was a few miles away. So anyway, they waited for me to get into my mom's car so they can just drive off. So I was like, that's really nice. My mom eventually liked that about, you know, asshole. And even as of today, she still, whenever I bring him up, she's like, I still like him because he's always had good manners. Like, he never, you know, got you into a room, or he always had manners. He actually made you, like, you know, stay outside his house instead of like being in his room. So, you know, nothing would happen because I don't want you to get deflowered and feel disappointed or something. I was just like, oh, well, she doesn't know about, you know, last week's video or whatever. But anyway, so then it happened where our final date before he and I broke up, we went to Target, and we were kind of like hanging out the electronics section, like, and he was holding me and stuff like that, and I just said, this is too soon for us to be like boyfriend and girlfriend to do this. But for some reason he felt comfortable, and I was just like, you know what, maybe I will be comfortable eventually. And at the time, you know, consent was like a very loose word, so a lot of people will think that, oh no, he was touching you wrong, you should tell him to back the fuck off in this. But for some reason it felt normal, and I was just like, you know what, I really like the guy, so let's see what happens. Then we went to his house, like, after Target, because he lived like about a block or two away from Target, and it was just like right there, street light, a block, and then you turn left, and his house was just like right there. It was nuts. It was really nuts. So anyway, I stopped in front of his house because his parents didn't want me inside, and I just said that's fucking fine, because he talked to me before we headed to his house, and he was just like, if my parents aren't home, I want you to be in my room so we can like cuddle and this and this. And I was just like, I'm not comfortable with that yet, but you know, maybe if setting the right vibe would actually be perfect. And luckily that never happened, but I did like bonded with his family again, knowing that, you know, they were racist and stuff, or they still are, honestly. But for some reason they were okay with his best friend, you know? But anyway, so we went to his backyard, and no fencing or whatever, we just walked back there. And they had this like cooling rack, or like a homemade rack, and his dad was making deer jerky, and I was like, I've never had deer jerky before. He's like, here, he gave me a piece, and I enjoyed it. And then I got to look at this backyard, right? And I was just like, what is up with all these patches? And then that's when he told me. He was like, well, whenever I get into a relationship with somebody and that, you know, my heart gets broken, like, I always dig a hole. And me digging this hole is a way for me to get over the heartbreak and then eventually forget the person. And I was just like, who was the last person that broke your heart? And he was like, some girl that was in our friend's circle. And then eventually I found out who it was, and it was I don't know her well enough, but all I know is she was a Vietnamese girl. So I was like, you know, I understand. I was like, okay. So even then he was like, yeah, but I'm trying to get over her. And I was just like, oh, that's fine. You know, like, I told him about my experience with female, and then he was like pissed off because he was like, I can't believe he did that to you, because I would have done whatever I can to get you comfortable. And I was just like, I understand, but the thing was is that I really liked him, and that's my mistake, and I'm gonna be living with that for the rest of my life and all that. And then he was like, okay, whatever. And then eventually my mom picked me up and we went home, and I went home. After that, no freaking communication. He just stopped talking to me. He didn't answer any of my phone calls, no messages on Facebook. But for some reason, whenever he was on Facebook, he will be tagging me and a bunch of other friends on his drawings, and I don't know. Like, I talked to him on there, and then he was fine, and then that's it. And then I decided to break things off with him because of the lack of communication. And then my friend Choji and Sparky found some evidence on him that, you know, maybe he was like cheating on me or something. And I was just like, I don't know. But then they showed me the evidence, and I was just like, you know what? That is freaking weird. He shouldn't be doing this, especially when he was dating with me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to break it off. And I did. And I still remember the fucking date. I still remember, because I remember after that date, my parents went to Mexico, and they stayed there for like a few weeks for sure. So I remember on December 19th, I decided to break things off with him because in the, I want to say maybe the second week, or I don't remember. But I remember it was a few days before I decided to break things off with asshole. There was my last ex, like before I got with my husband. He was showed interest in me, and for some reason my young dumb brain was just like, I was like really interested in him, and I really wanted to go out with him. So my friends Sparky and Choji were kind of like, hey, do you think we could come over to your house and maybe, you know, let's see if you guys are going to start dating and stuff. And I was just like, well, I'm still dating asshole, you know. He's like, but you're going to be breaking things off, right? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. I was like, all right, well, we're going to show up. So then my last ex and then my other two friends showed up. And so we decided to call asshole. And then I broke things off over him over the phone. And I know it's a fucking dick move, but I had to, because there was no way in hell I was going to meet him in person and talk to him. So, and he was just like, he was devastated. He really was. And I felt really bad. But like, honestly, thinking about it now, I'm glad like things never went further than that, because who knows what he would have done, and then it wouldn't work anyway. So I decided to end things, and then he dug a hole, of course, and he showed me the evidence through Facebook, and I was just like, I'm so sorry, but the lack of communication is just what kills me. And I want somebody to like, yeah, at the time it was just like constant communication was a very important thing anyway, and it still is as of today. So I just thought that it was so strange that he would never talk to me or answer me whenever I wanted to hear his voice or go see him. And I had to go hang out with friends instead. But his excuses at the time were like, he was busy at work, like, but I was like, okay, well, you know what, let me excuse that, because, I mean, yeah, you are 2 years older than me, and, you know, you have to work in order to pay rent and bills and stuff like that. But it was like, he always used that as an excuse. I just said, okay, well, sure, whatever. And then it turned out that he had like other hangouts, or he just spent a lot of time with his family, which I thought that was okay. But then I heard like rumors, I guess, like through Facebook. Like I was seeing it all over on Facebook. Like they were plastered on there that he was like showing interest in another girl or something. I was just like, oh yeah, no, that maybe that was the evidence that Choji was trying to show me. So then I went with that, broke up with him, and then this and this and this and happened. And then after that we tried to be friends, and then we just are not in communication as of today. Even though like he was like my very first guy best friend ever, because like I said, I've had other friends in the past that were like really cool and I really liked them and stuff like that for the way they are, but they were nowhere near as asshole. They really wasn't. And I'm gonna tell you why he got that nickname, not just because of his demeanor changing or something. It was like before we started dating, he called me one day to actually ask me out, and I was just like, oh, I don't know, but I still want to be your friend, whatever. I called him on my mom's kitchen at the time. Like in her kitchen, there's a dining room table, so then I sat over there. And my brother came in and was just like, who the fuck are you talking to? And he knew it was a guy because of the voice in there. And then while I was having such a great conversation with asshole, my brother kept interrupting him, and then they started arguing with each other over the phone, and I got frustrated. And he was like, man, he's a fucking asshole. You need to tell him that he needs manners. And then asshole was just like, can you please tell your brother, like, we're having a really nice conversation and that he could interrupt us later or something because I really want to talk to you. And my brother was like, not having it. So then my mom came into the kitchen in the conversation, was just like, leave your sister alone, okay? And then my brother was like, whatever, walks away. And then I finally finished a conversation with asshole, and then that was the end of that. So that's the reason why. Because he got stuck with that nickname was because he was being rude to my brother. But even then, my brother was being rude at the time. But for all good reason. He was being the overprotective brother. And I can't blame him for that. But whatever. It was kind of like a sign that I took that, if he's acting this way towards a guy, maybe he wasn't worth it. And I mean, he wasn't worth it because I'm not with him anymore. Like, I'm happily married. So that's the end of the memory. I bet it was a little bit longer than I expected. And even though it was like in a short amount of time that I've dated this guy, but like I felt like I've hit things off so well with him, especially with Persona 3 and and food, basically, because those were like the constant two conversations he and I had, like throughout high school and then after high school. But I don't know, it was just like he was so cool, and even as of today, like if I were by myself with him talking to him, it felt like nothing changed. It felt like we were still best friends, and that we will always have bonding moments, But for some reason, his demeanor would change when somebody else gets in the conversation, especially Choji, because he can tell that, like, at the time, that asshole was trying to be friendly again with me. Kind of like maybe he thought that he had a chance or something. And I'm like, no, he knows that I'm, at the time I was engaged. So I was like, he knows that I'm engaged. And it's like, yeah, but, he's starting to become the asshole that you remember back in high school. And I was like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. And I didn't saw any of the signals because I just thought that maybe he was just being friendly and stuff, but well, whatever. But anyway, that's the end of the episode. Sorry for rambling on for a little bit more, but I wanted to see if I could remember some other details, and I know there's going to be some that I will forget, especially from the other previous episodes. And if I do remember, they're minute. It's not going to matter anyway, so who cares? Like, honestly, who cares? Because this was like a memory that, like all the other memories before that too, and this one that I mentioned before, that it's just something that I'm never ever going to forget. And every single time I will listen to the song, like his mind or like his face pops up in my brain, and I'm just like, man, I wonder whatever happened to him or something. And then since I'm still friends with his best friend through my personal Facebook, it's just nice to get some info or just get updates from him, even though I don't talk to him anymore. And I do want to talk to him, of course, but like I felt like it's gonna go back to like the same cycle over and over again, and I just don't want to be reminded of that time that much. It was just great memories, and that's all it's ever gonna be. I don't want to relive through them, of course. It's just, I guess I just miss like the friendship part. And I know since now we're already old adults, it's like we have to make some new memories, you know? And it don't matter if it's the same people or not, or different people. It's just like, if I were to talk to him, and since he was in my past, like, I just can't. I really can't. And especially now that I'm married, and then I know for a fact he has a girlfriend. Maybe he's already engaged or something. But all I wished for was for him to be happy after he and I broke up, and he's finally happy, and I'm happy with that too. So I felt like I could finally, like, you know, let go of that, because I remember it hindered me for so long, even after me dating my last ex. So I was like, well, we'll see. But anyway, that's the end of that. I'm just gonna go now before I ramble on again, and then it's gonna be another long video and stuff. So I'll see you guys next week. Okay, bye.